I know that it's been quite a busy day, but what do we know about the suspect so far?
So we do know that he's 36 years old. We do know that he was convicted of murder back in 2010 for brutally murdering his girlfriend at the time. And he had been granted parole in about 2019. So he was out on parole when he decided to go and smash the windows of the highest court in the land. We still don't know why he did that. But I must just speak about his conduct in court today. I think many of us were waiting to see who the man is that actually had the courage to take a hammer and start smashing the windows and doors of the Constitutional Court. I must say he was very reserved. He did seem a little bit nervous because you could just see with his hand gestures and his response. He did apply for legal aid as he had indicated to the magistrate that he would rather opt for legal aid, which is a service that is provided to accused should they not have the means to have their own legal team represent them. But that's what we know so far. We do know that he was out on parole when he decided to do this, and of course this speaks a lot to why he also didn't ask for bail, but we'll get into that a little later. Let's perhaps just listen to what the National Prosecuting Authority had to say with regards to that conviction back in 2010.
Yes, we can confirm that the accused is currently serving parole under correctional supervision. For a charge of murder. He was convicted in 2010 and released on parole in 2019. So what we have now done as the state is to request the investigating officer to liaise with the Department of Correctional Services in terms of establishing whether or not the accused person before court contravened his parole conditions, and if so, then he should be taken back to custody to serve the remainder of his sentence.
Well, Heidi, with everything that's happened in Parliament, I'm sure the big question now is, was this at all politically motivated, and the motive behind of this? And what did the NPA have to say about that?
So unfortunately, we couldn't get the version of the accused from their legal team because, of course, they didn't apply for bail and there was no affidavit that was read out or anything of that sort. But we did ask the NPA from their preliminary investigations whether or not they believe that this is at all politically motivated, because it was a few days after we saw Parliament up in flames, and if you have an attack on a national key point and the highest courts in the land, such as the Constitutional Court, many would wonder, why would you do that? Why would you take a hammer and start smashing the windows and the doors of the Constitutional Court? But the NPA is indicating to us that at this stage they are still investigating, and they have very little evidence at this stage to suggest that it could be politically motivated or that there's any kind of link with what happened in the Western Cape. But let's listen again to what the NPA said on that.
Investigations are still at an infant stage, so once the investigation process progresses, we'll be in a better position to tell whether or not this is a political motivated act or it's just an individual act, and whether or not it's linked to the Cape Town one. Investigations are ongoing, but at this point we don't have information that suggests that this case is linked to what happened in the Western Cape.
And from what we understand now, he didn't apply for bail. And the big question is, why?
Exactly, and I think many were wondering why he didn't apply for bail, but I think it speaks to the fact, Faith, that he is out on parole and he's very possibly breach those parole conditions. I mean, you just don't take a hammer and start smashing the Constitutional Court and think that if you're going to apply for bail and you have been convicted of murder in 2010, you're going to get it easy. But of course, the magistrate saying that at any time the accused feels as though he wants to apply for bail, he can do so and it will be heard, because everybody needs to be given an equal right to do so. But for now, his bail application has been shelved because he has said he will not be applying for bail. So it's not even like he abandoned his bail. He just said, I do not want to apply for bail. No reasons were given as to why, but many do suspect that it's got to do with the fact that he was convicted of murder in 2010.
You know, Heidi, it also speaks significantly to how he managed to get in. And I think a lot of times he's speaking about what the man did, but to get access to the Constitutional Court and to use a hammer that means that you're in close proximity with the court itself. It speaks significantly and raises a lot of questions around where was security at the time that an individual can get into the Constitutional Court and smash windows.
Exactly, and just where it happened also speaks to how, I wouldn't say there was easy access to the Constitutional Court, but surely you should be stopped because, I mean, if you're carrying a hammer, you're not carrying a pen. It's a huge object that you're carrying. So taking out that hammer and you start bashing, and the damage was really extensive. You start bashing the windows and the doors, and it wasn't just one window or one door. It was several windows and doors of the Constitutional Courts. And as you enter the Constitutional Courts, they are almost like burglar bars. So that's why he went around the Constitutional Court where there aren't burglar bars, and he started smashing those windows and those doors. But then the South African Police Service had to be called on scene because he just would not listen to the security, and that's when several shots were fired as a warning to say you need to step away from the Constitutional Court, you need to stop doing what you're doing.
So he continued even before the police arrived, and the security didn't apprehend him, and they waited for the SAPS to arrive while he was smashing the windows, and that's only when the warning shots were fired that something happened.
Yes, I think it was such a volatile situation that it was very difficult for the security. I'm not really sure if the security is armed to actually apprehend or deal with a kind of situation like that. I don't think anybody thinks somebody would just walk up to the Constitutional Court and do so, do something like that. But you can see the visuals that we managed to get today. They were trying to repair the windows and the doors already, but the damage is really extensive. I mean, he was bashing those windows. He did not stop, and I think eventually when probably the fifth or the sixth shot was fired, the police managed to move in and apprehend him.
Heidi Giokos, it certainly does get interesting in our country, doesn't it? We'll leave it there for today. Thank you very much for giving us insight on that. What's happening there at the Constitutional Court? You heard that the suspect has been apprehended and he has decided not to apply for bail.